one. Here we go. All right. What's up, everybody? Namaste. My name is Dani, and thank you so much for joining the Light Side. I have a very, very special guest that I'm very excited to bring this conversation to you. She's one of my very good friends from Florida. Her name is Anita. She's an Ayahuasca shaman, a teacher, a lecturer, a spiritual leader and teacher in my life. And now she is just the message of God. So Anita, hi.
Yay! I
Thank you
think
for
one.
coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. So off the bat, I just want to say something really quick. I feel that a lot of people want to know when they're enlightened. I'm just going to throw this off the bat really
Oh,
quick.
yeah.
It's joy.
Oh,
How do you know when you're really in touch with your truth that you're joyful, you're happy? It's impossible to contain this, and this is why then you can share it easily. So
yes.
joy, I love your joy. So that's why I'm saying this. I look at you and I see your joy, and it's so beautiful to see. And thank you for sharing it with others.
Thank you so much, Anita. And it's so funny when I was thinking about how to introduce you, my mind was going, her joy and her ability to tap into her inner child just at will and just all the time, and your giggle is something that
Yeah,
really just lights me up. And I'm so that's funny that you mentioned joy, because I also see
yeah,
that within you.
yeah,
Um, So, just to give everybody a little bit of a background on you and your message of God and how it's kind of been throughout your life, this kind of reoccurring theme, can you just, and
yeah.
this is also some stuff that I actually don't know about you either. So, I'm excited to learn. So, like, start us off for like,
Okay.
where did all of this like start?
In the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I ever since I was a kid, I was able to see and hear things. Now, what does that mean? Well, I used to get in trouble as a child, because an adult would be talking to me and I would look at them and I would say, "Why are you lying?" And they would think I was insolent. What do you mean I'm lying? And I said, well, you're not really feeling that. So it started off for me. I feel like I was born with the ability to be able to hear, and I hear a lot of things, okay, and all of us hear things, but to distinguish what is the voice that we're hearing is huge, okay. um, and then at around the age of 15, I was severely abused throughout my life, and I was forced to go to a Catholic lay evangelist retreat, and so they put, and at the time I was suicidal. I was not doing good at all, right? And they put me in a bus by myself at the age of 15 from Miami to Pensacola. And when I get there, the man that was running it, he looks at me, he goes, "Ah, my beautiful creation of God, come here." And I was like, who is this guy? I've never heard that before. I was like, who is this guy talking to? So I kind of like looked over to see if there was somebody behind me. And he says, "No, you, masterpiece of God, come here." And when I go to him and he hugs me, I feel this unconditional love. And that immediately started breaking me down. It was just amazing. So at the age of 15 is when I had my first, like, I guess you could say, my first true, like, whoa experience, like out of body, like my whole world got altered. It was, can I actually tell you a little bit how it happened?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. So, I was with these groups from these group of kids from all over the United States, and I was had my sketchbook. I always drew ever since I was a child too, and I remember at night they were doing this play, and the play seemed like my life. There was abuse, there was like suicidal thoughts, there were, all these things, and it was rippling inside of me that I needed to change this, right? So I ended up going to the church next door. Now this is at night, and there was only one light, and it was in front of the altar. And it was an old wooden Baptist church. So it, squeaking on the floor and stuff. And I get to the altar and I kneel down and I just start praying. And I said, I surrender. I said, I surrender because I started looking at my sketchbook and I saw I was just so over it. I was so over the suffering. I was so over the pain. I just wanted it to just be done. And so I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And what I did was I asked forgiveness for the person who was abusing me. I said, forgive me for hating this person. forget. I knew that I could not understand really the love of God and still have hate inside of me, right? So I said, God, forgive me for hating this person. I love you so much. Do you love me? And I asked 3 times, and I'm like sobbing, hardcore. I'm like, God, do you love me? I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, I can hear the church door open. I can hear the squeaking in the wooden floors, and a woman whispers in my ear, God loves you. And of course, I'm like, at this point, when I heard that woman, and then I was taken back because I didn't see anybody, which is huge. Imagine hearing somebody and then looking to see who it is, and there's nobody there. And so that experience broke down. I was like, wow, I get it. That happened because I released myself of the hold of suffering. Like, and I didn't make somebody else a villain. I realized it's impossible to not be if you're a villain, you're also a victim. It's vice versa. When you're you're frozen a little bit.
Oh.
You're freezing up. You're freezing.
Oh.
You're freezing.
I am. You're still good, as far as I can see.
All right, let me go back into it. No,
Okay.
this
Okay.
is going to be a work of miracle.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go back. All right. All right. I thought you got stuck for a second.
Oh.
Don't get stuck. It's
Okay.
impossible to get stuck in this conversation. That might happen a little bit. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
That happens because it's moving so much energy.
Mhm.
Um Anyways, all right, I'll go back into it. You start from where I'm about to go into, okay?
Okay.
so 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 then the next day, a group of kids said that they were going to pray the rosary outside of the church. Now, I didn't know what that was, and but something had told me to go. And so a group of kids got in the circle outside of the church, and they were doing the rosary and they were singing. I didn't know what was going on at all. I wasn't like super participant in it. All I remember is having this repetition in my mind that I had my hands up in the air, and that wasn't like me either. I was really shy as a child. And I had my hands up in there and I said, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. It was just like, it was just like, I just wanted this. I just knew I needed to just really be helped. At this point, it was like, I did not want to wake up at all anymore. You know what I mean? So I was like, help me, help me. And then this, this girl that was standing next to me falls to the floor and says, God is here. As she says, God is here, I feel a presence enter my hands and go through my whole body. And instantaneous peace. I don't even know how to describe it, um, but just like an overwhelming, all encompassing, I was somewhere else. I was just in the state of just like complete utter love. All the thoughts that I had in my brain, just all just vanished, and I was just like in so much peace. And when somebody touched me, I realized that I was speaking. And that's how I actually started speaking different languages, is through the channeling, is just that surrender. And after that, that's when I really started seeing, like, even more, it was more profound, my vision. I wasn't just, I was seeing people, and I was seeing parts of their life where they were stuck and why they were stuck. Because I had broken free from that myself, then I was able to see it in others. Um, and then after that, I really started going more into like, okay, I want to know a little bit more about this. So I studied several different disciplines, and I actually also worked in a botanica, which is like a santeria, like spiritual shop, where I would channel beings. Um, and there's a reason why this all happened. You see, when I was young and I was experiencing such unconditional love, and then I went back to my abusive environment, I was like, wow, what is this? There was such a split. And so the whole time that I'm healing others through the age of 15 until the age I'm in now, which is not 15. Yeah, I'm in my 40s. I, I was still split. There was still that part of me that I knew that there was this unconditional love, this magnitude, this amazingness, but I would see the suffering. I would see the pain. I still had pain. I kept having abusive relationships. Um, and then I got into ayahuasca. And how I got into ayahuasca was pretty crazy. I remember seeing some documentary. When I started ayahuasca, it wasn't as popular as it is now, obviously. And I remember saying to myself, well, how am I going to get to Brazil to go do ayahuasca with the shaman? And I got invited to, I don't know, it was this friend of mine that was an artist was doing this display. And she says, hey, Anita, do you want to come? And I was like, not really. But again, I was drawn. So this is when you are drawn to certain things and you do not know why, but something keeps pulling you, you just got to listen, you know? So I went and I was like unamused by the art. I was unamused by the scenario. So I was like, I think I'm done here. So I start leaving. And when I start leaving, I see this woman. She walks right across me and I go, whoa. I was like, who's that? And I could feel my spirit said, grab her. You need to work with her. But at the time, I had a really big ego. So I was like, work with her. I don't need to work with anybody. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing this for so long, and I had that tug of war. But again, that instinct kept pushing at me. So I grabbed her by the arm. I'm not small by any means. So I'm grabbing this skinny, short woman by the arm and I go, okay, I know I need to work with you. Why? I get it. You're a healer. I'm a healer. So what? Like really like kind of like asshole status. And so so she turns to me, she goes, excuse me. She says, I'm from Brazil. I'm an ayahuasca shaman. And I was like, oh my God, I get it. So then shortly after that, we went into the woods. And when because I had my life was about channeling spirit. When the first time I drank ayahuasca, it was like coming home. It was instantaneous coming home. It's like, wow, okay, I know this place. You know what I mean? And then after that, I proceeded to do over like 500 ceremonies all over the world. I went to the Amazon, I went to Africa, I went to amazing places. But still, this is huge, but still I was suffering. And in shamanic traditions, for instance, we are taught that for us to have an enlightening experience, we have to go through a period of suffering. So most initiations are about breaking you. They're breaking your body, breaking your mind, breaking you till you surrender to the point where you're over it, and then all of a sudden spirit takes over. You know what I mean? And this is a very common in shamanistic practices. So about 2 years ago, I was working a lot. I was traveling a lot. I felt really good about my life. But again, I was still angry. I was still suffering. And I ended up having a stroke. And when I had my stroke, I remember it completely. I remember seeing the tunnel, having the experience of a lot of fear of like, holy shit, I'm dying. I had that feeling of, oh my God, I'm dying. And then in that whole process that would probably took a couple of minutes, for me, it felt like lifetimes, right? I went outside to go stand up against a tree. I was waiting for my sister to take me to the hospital, right? Because I couldn't drive. Um, and I'm leaning up against a tree and I said, I don't understand. I'm so used to going through death with ayahuasca. I'm so used to this ego death. Why am I so scared? I'm so scared, and I can feel my heart racing. I was like, oh my God. And I could see lights and I was like, what the fuck? Am I really dying right now? This can't be like this. I'm just getting started. And then I was taken to the hospital, and during the process of the CAT scan, I was in and out of consciousness. And all of a sudden, I'm awake in the stroke unit. And the doctor looks at me, he says, "So, do you remember what you did when you came in here?" And I said, "No." He says, "You were singing the whole time in the CAT scan, and you were praying." And the first thing I saw when I came to in the stroke unit, as they're asking me all these questions, I see my dad that had passed away walk across the hallway, looks at me and says, "Oh, you're just now beginning. You're just now getting started." And it was, I knew at that point that I was going to make it, that I was just starting, that what happened, Ram Dass, when he had a stroke, it is the most life altering experience. It's like the most extreme spiritual, physical experience you can get to. You know what I mean? Because something does happen in your brain and you're just like, whoa. So I had lost the right side of my body and I wasn't able to speak. I was in the hospital for a long period of time. Then I was sent back to the house. And one of the things that happened after my stroke was, one of the side effects not only was the temporary paralysis and unable to speak, was uncontrollable panic attacks, consistently. And then this is where I say I really, really understood the message I had been teaching the whole time. It's like I had to sit in it. You know what I mean? And so I remember not being able to feel anything and having this paranoia of like, oh my God, is it going to happen again? Oh my God, am I going to die? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then this tug of war between my spirit and the ego and the body and this and this and this and this. And I go, this doesn't make any sense. I'm a spiritual person. Why am I going through this? And then I understood spiritual ego, right? Where it's an entrapment. And then I said, okay, so the entrapment of the spiritual ego is saying, you're not spiritual enough because you're suffering. You're not spiritual enough because you're going through a panic attack. I told you didn't know what you were doing, right? So I went through that. And then I said, something's got to give here. I got to stop this. And then I decided to just start loving, just start being compassionate with myself, just being gentle with myself. And that's when I started crying. And I realized that I didn't know how to be compassionate with myself. And it was so easy for me to give love to others. It was so easy for me to say, yes, I love you. You're amazing. You're amazing. But in my time of deepest sorrow, where everything I knew seemed to be crumbling down, how was at that point I was able to give compassion to myself? And I just started by just like hugging myself and saying, you're okay. I love you. You're okay. I love you. And not saying, well, what are you going to do now? You can't be a shaman anymore. You can't move your hands and you can't speak. And how my life was dedicated to helping others. And now I couldn't help anybody. So all that focus had to go to me. You know what I mean? And I was just like intense. And then I realized I had a split mind. And when I say that is, I was saying to everybody, just love, just love, just love. But in secret, behind closed door, I was angry. I was angry. I was judgmental. I criticized people, but behind closed doors, so nobody could see that, right? I would do it. I would say, "Oh, I love you so much." To close the door, and he's asshole. You know what I mean? And there was that tug of war in my personal relationships. A lot of spiritual people that I know have horrible personal relationships. Their intimate relationships are horrendous, right? Why does that all happen? And that is because we're at a tug of war in our brain. We're in that split mind that says, I feel that I'm one with God, but mm, but I see so much bad stuff, and it's that well, which one do I choose? I can't be here all the time because I see this. Well, this is what healing the mind, and this is what oneness is all about, is healing that. I feel good. Say something.
Oh, that was beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
such
know.
a
I felt like I was going.
yeah, it just plugged in.
I get excited. I was like, wait a second, am I supposed to have a conversation? I just get so excited.
But I love that. That was so beautiful, and it was just divinely
Yeah.
guided, and I feel like people are going to want to hear that message, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be great. So thank you for sharing that. And I love it's a perfect segue into oneness and how
Yes.
that's kind of what we wanted to, you know, hit home today was oneness, non-duality, no separation, everything is the same. And so if I'm understanding correctly, you first realized this big time in your own mind when things were separate.
Right. Mm.
Okay. Wow.
But you have to get really real with yourself.
Yeah.
Really, really real with yourself. Like, oof, that is like, that will rock you hardcore. I remember when I realized that I had a split mind. This is funny. So my bedroom was really far from the bathroom, you know? So I remember waking up in the morning and walking to the bathroom, and all the stories I would tell myself as I was walking from the bedroom to the bathroom about why this person was this way, why this was going to be bad, why I had to put up a wall, why I had to protect myself. All these stories. And I just started the day and I was like, wow, my brain,
Yeah.
give it a rest. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. You know, that's funny. I had a moment of like having a split kind of a split personality or split mind, and I
Yeah,
was actually living two different worlds when I was in bodybuilding.
yeah.
And I released a contest prep masterclass recently, and I let them know about this lesson that I learned and how on one hand I was doing everything Miss Olympia should do,
Mm,
training, cardio, doing all of that, but then there were a couple times during my contest prep where I was partying and I did ecstasy a
mm,
couple times, you know, just whatever. But that's not what Miss Olympia does, but nobody knew that, but I knew that.
mm,
And so now 2 years later, I can say, wow, I kind of fucked that up because for me,
mm,
all that I realize and understand about vibration and to become a whole vibration in order to receive whatever it is that you're going for, I think that that was my big lesson was like,
yeah,
you weren't totally everything that you said you were. And that's why you
right.
didn't get first. You got second, bitch.
Well, even saying you weren't everything you said you were is creating our a title for ourselves,
Mm,
and trying to live up to that title will always create some form of chaos in our life. You know, and this is one of the best ways to really understand oneness is to remove titles and realize that roles change, like the mother becoming the daughter, the daughter becoming the father, sometimes becoming the best friend, you know, and realizing that I get what you're saying, but it's something inside of you, right, that says, man, i can't I can't keep doing it like that anymore. And you just got to get really real. And there's
yep.
that scary part that says, well, what am I going to do now? I've lived my whole life, you know, doing these competitions, right? With you. Like my whole life I've been doing these competitions. This is who I am. This is how everybody knows me. What do I do now? So how'd you do it?
So it's actually that's such a great question, and I remember I was still around when I was going through this with you, and you know it was I kind of just hermited away. Like I kind of had to close everything off and go really within myself and just cut off social media, cut off the shows, cut off the sponsors, like release. I almost lost my husband. Like I almost just cut everything out of my life
Yeah.
because I realized that like I didn't want to be this thing that I was working for so long, and
Mm.
it really didn't matter.
Right.
And so I think it was maybe realizing that like I don't need to be Miss Olympia, but it took me like 2.5 years to even just come back on social media and I was like, and I had to get rid of Little Monster because I was like, this is putting me in a box. So I think I really just had to cut out everything and just go within myself and do what I like. And it was something different than I had totally ever done before. It was meditation all the time. It was yoga all the time.
Mm.
It was eating more plants, and it was just like breaking down all of my walls and being a broken ass person and moving across the country to Colorado and just being like, I'm open. Like, I don't know what else to do or who else to be, but I'm ready for whatever's next.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And look at it. When you surrender what you're not, or, when you surrender all these things that no longer serve a purpose for you, and you just you typically you get on your knees, you know what I mean? When you have those aha moments in life, you're typically on your knees, and it could be physical also, where you're
Yeah.
like you're on your knees and in a kind of place of like in a way of being reborn, you know?
Yes.
It's like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. That part where you when you loosen up the control that you have to control everything in your life
Yeah.
and just say, I don't know, I need help. You know what that does? That welcomes in, because when you think you know it all, that actually welcomes in the divine to say, ah, I've been waiting for so long to help you. All you had to do was ask me, you know? And then
Yeah.
it seems like your life just got, oh my God. I would have never imagined, for instance, I know you could probably feel this way too, is being able to travel to so many places and meet such amazing people when you live
Yes.
in your truth. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you're meeting all these really cool people, right, in bodybuilding, and now all of a sudden you're meeting all these other people, right? Isn't that
Yes.
cool?
It's amazing. All the different
Yeah.
people that are coming into my experience that are doing what I'm interested in now. And it's such a cool how, and like, I love how you said surrender. And I feel like that's what I had to do because
Mm,
nothing was working anymore. And I didn't even want everything that was working, I didn't want to work. So I was
right.
just, and then I started to attract
Yeah.
different things. And yeah, totally right.
Because your mind started changing, because you started, and when you become one with that, and you become one with that, and see, about oneness is about removing competition, actually, the
Yes.
competitiveness of each other, and just saying, I don't see somebody who's messed up here. I see a brilliant creation. I see God. I see God. I see God. And 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 when we can unite in that magnitude, what we attract in our life is amazing. Doors open. We start living the life we've always dreamed about. We start becoming more of a co-creator in our life, instead of like life is just happening to us, which is huge. you know
Yes.
so I know how it feels, because I went through that, like what you were saying. I was like, what was that? I'm not gonna do ayahuasca shaman anymore. Like, what is that? Like, what does that look like?
Right.
And then, you know what happens though? Tell me if you went through this too. When you go through the phase of like, wow, everything I just worked for doesn't even matter anyways. um you know when you go through that, then you go through a period of, it's not depression, but it's like that, huh, I'm just gonna be for a split second, and I just gotta be, and you know what I mean. And it's like, well, I need to get motivated, I need to do something with my life, and then something just says, no, you don't. Just wait a second. Just be present for a minute. Right? Did you go
Yeah.
through that?
I did. I totally did. And I just had to be okay in the limbo. Like I just
Yeah.
found this okayness in the waiting and what, because I knew something was going to be next. I like to put my
Yeah.
energy and my passion into something, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And so I really had to just be okay and just being. And I loved just being because it's great. You can really start to get to know yourself and how you want to serve the world and what you want to be. And I went through the same thing. I was like, wow, everything I had worked for since I was 15
Yeah.
is now doesn't even fucking matter. And I don't know if it ever really did. Like, so I was just like,
Isn't that
well,
crazy?
and I'm 29
Yeah.
and now I'm just basically starting life over, just trying to figure it out from square one.
Yeah.
But so I went through that same exact thing and being okay in the okayness and just in the beingness, and then just kind of like being open to whatever's next, like whatever is going to be divinely put into your path is okay, and follow it.
Yeah. But I think that's the hardest part for people, though. is that part, that that limbo part of like not knowing what to do next. um, because we're a society that is go, 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 production, 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 produce something, produce something. If you're not producing something, then what are you doing? You know what I mean? Um, so in state of complete stillness, you you're not producing anything. You are just connecting to the magnitude of all things. You know what I mean? And I think that we've been taught a little bit backwards. Like most of us have been taught, you got to work your ass off, you got to work really hard to get everything that you want in life. You know, suffer, suffer, I need you to suffer to get something good in life, you know. In complete stillness, and when you tune in and tap into the full abundance of what is really inside of you, in that presence of that state of being, like things literally come to you. This is, you know, a lot of people talk about that in the law of attraction and things like that, but it actually really, really works. It really, really, but you cannot go into that state of being and also freak out. You know, and that's what healing the split mind is about. You can't go into like, I feel this abundance, I am one with God, I am one with God. Oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent? I am one with God, I am one with God. You know what I mean? You really have to go into that fully, because then you're sending that message of abundance out, you know. And this is why the oneness is very important in the non-dualistic. And you talked to me about the non-dualistic approach to life, which is completely contrary to how most of us live. So what does that mean for you, the non-dualistic life?
So it means a couple things. Right off the bat, I just think how humans, like the biggest illusion that we have is that we're separate from one another. And
Right.
I think that, and so when I started to really learn what namaste meant, when I really
Mm.
understood the light in me sees the light in you in all things, then I really started to fall in love with everybody. Like I will talk to somebody way too long in the grocery store because I want to look into their eyes and I want to really get to know them. And I started to see it in the plants and in the animals. And I really just, and it's like almost like an overwhelming compassion for everything. Even if they're saying
Yes.
something, it's like not, that's not their light, that's just their ego. But so it,
Mm.
I guess it showed me the light in all things and the
Mm.
overwhelming love and compassion that I now have for all things because it's the same as me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That makes me so happy. Yeah, yeah, I feel all warm and gushy inside as you say that. You know, one of the now doing that for people that are really close to you, it tends to be a little bit more difficult for some reason. So, you know, I knew how things had shifted for me when I used to do consultations. And when I would do consultations, I would tell the person all the things that they were doing wrong, you know. Oh, you know, do this, no, do that, you know. And after I had healed my mind, when they would speak to me and they would tell me about all their problems, I would just be smiling. And they were like, you know, and they're crying, and I'm like, you know what? And they're like, and then they would stop because they would see that there was no, I wasn't playing with them in that, you know, that I was just seeing beauty. And then they wanted to understand, why is it that you can see God with what I'm saying? And I was just, because I don't see the illusion you just spoke about. I see your truth. I see the presence of God. And that is the best way to be able to help pull somebody out of their misery. You can't go into the a lot of empath says, oh, you're messing me up, your energy's messing me up, all of this stuff. Well, who's going to pull who out of the cesspool, you know? You have to be that that compassion, that love, and just smiling at each other, just going out in public and just smiling and going, oh my God, everybody I see is God. Oh my God, this is awesome. Looking in the mirror and going, oh my God, I see you. You're amazing. This is amazing. And then realizing that you're not even looking at somebody else. You're really looking at your own reflection. And so you keep falling in love with your own reflection of God. It's beautiful, but it's got to be a choice. It's a little bit difficult in the beginning.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I love what you said about family. I think Ram Dass actually says something like, if you want to see how enlightened you are, go spend a week with your family or something like that, because that'll really.
Do you know how things changed a lot in my family? Was I stopped taking things personal. I think it's harder with our families because we take it personally. Because they should know us the best, because they've seen us since we were yee small, and they know that that's my trigger, and why are they pushing my button, and they're doing that on purpose. So the best thing is to realize that they're the presence of God, and how to have effective communication is key. So I see that you're struggling. I see that you're going through a hard time right now. What can I do to help you? I love you. Imagine saying that to your family member who is going at you and saying, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Instead of feeding into that, because the reality is none of that is going to, all of that is an illusion anyways. That's all just so temporary. That's not the reality. Usually anytime somebody's upset, they're just wanting love. They're just wanting to be nurtured, but they don't know how to ask for it. So instead of taking it personal, just take a deep breath and go, I see that you're struggling. I love you. What can I do to help you? It, it releases the fight. You know what I mean? A fight can only happen when there's two willing participants. The same like good, making love. They can only with two willing participants that see the reflection of God.
That's wonderful. And that reminds me of the quote that's like, look, when you're fighting with somebody, do you want to be right or do you want to be kind? And then
Exactly.
yeah, and that lets the ego go, because like being right is the ego. I need to win this fight, even if you're freaking wrong. And then you just
Yeah.
come up and now you forget why you're even fighting, but you have to be right. And that helps me with my situation, because I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Kindness. And then it automatically, fighting fire with fire only creates more fire. So if you're a little bit
Right.
of water, maybe you can put it out a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I tell people this all the time. You know why judgment, it sucks all the time, even because it's the right and wrong thing. It's because how many times have you said that somebody was wrong to realize later on that they weren't wrong? Or how many times have you thought you were right about a scenario and then realize, well, I kind of screwed that one up. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why the whole judgment and the conflict thing, it doesn't work in the mind of oneness. It just, and so you need a lot of discipline to follow this. This. You've got to stay on it. You're really good at discipline and I honestly feel that your training has helped you train spiritually so you can really live this. What do you think about that?
Thank you for saying that. And now that I'm kind of coming into this more spiritual realm without bodybuilding was my connection. It was my spiritual training on belief, on believing in something that
Right.
I don't see yet, and discipline, and visualizing. And so bodybuilding was my connection, I think, and for where I really started to understand spirituality, and not so much religion, but a connection to
Mm.
something that's bigger than me. And I started to see the numbers and have all these synchronicities, and I was like, the fuck. And then late now, and when I quit bodybuilding, that was my biggest loss, was my
Mm.
connection to my
Mm.
wisdom. I would just come up with these things and this wisdom and these thoughts, and without bodybuilding, I was like, how do I get connected again? And that was my biggest fear, was I wouldn't be able to
Mm.
find that space again. And through yoga, I did. And there's no competition.
Beautiful.
And
Nice.
I love, and it, when I'm on my mat, it checks the physical box, the mental box, and the spiritual box. And so now
Beautiful.
I can build from here. And now I'm without bodybuilding and I'm so connected, and I'm connecting with other people who are so connected. So I actually really am thankful that you made that connection, because like that was my training.
Yeah, yeah, and you're and that's why it seems like it comes a little bit easy for you, because you already have this thing inside of you that understands discipline, and it is uber important to maintain this way of being. Discipline is key for anybody who has the aha moment in life where all of a sudden they feel good, they get it, and they're like, wow. And then a month later, they're back into the same old routine. It's
Yes.
because they lack discipline, right? And so I'll tell you some of the things that I do as far as discipline, but could you share what you do too? Because I want to hear, because you know how to do this kind of stuff.
That's funny. I was actually just going to ask you. Well, so what do you do? Um, Really, it's been meditation has been paramount in my life. I've been
Mm,
very consistent with it over the last year, and I have a little special spot, and I light my, Palo Santo, and I have my malas, and so I'm always constantly reminded of the
mm,
bigger idea here.
right.
And then I practice it with people. I think actually practicing it when you go to speak to people is, and my sister gets pissed off at me because everywhere we go, somebody stops and talks to me, and they'll just, and
Mhm.
Ian says it too, but so I'll start and talk to somebody, and I will just look into their eyes and see the light, and like sometimes tune out what they're saying, and not on purpose, but just because I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, look how blue your eye, and it's just this homeless man. But I think it's actively like training, like going into the gym and working out, actively practicing falling in love with the God in every person and animal, versus just kind of keeping it to yourself and knowing this idea, but living it sometimes.
Yes, I love that you said that, because the more we share it, the more abundant we become in it, and then it becomes actually a lifestyle without the hard work. It becomes easy. So one of the things that I do as far as like discipline is concerned is I'm actually very disciplined. The first thing I do is when I wake up in the morning is I give myself love. It's one of the things that actually healed me was,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't give myself compassion first thing in the morning, how can I truly share that with others? So I make sure that I notice God within me before I even get out of bed. And I'll close my eyes and I'll say, I see you, God, I love you. And I'll rock myself. The rocking motion is very relaxing, you know, and I massage my body, every day. I'll massage my body, I'll massage my head, and then I'll start training myself for that day. So then I'll say, God, I give you my mind. You are the loudest voice in my head. I close my eyes and I say, I see your compassion. I see only your love. And then I put my hands in my ears and I say, God, I hear you. I hear your call. I answer your call. I hear you in all things. Right. And then in my heart, I feel you. I feel you in my heart. I feel your unconditional love as I share it with others. So what I am doing at that point is that I am training myself first thing in the morning on how to start my day, how to see, how to think, how to hear, how to feel, and then throughout the day, I check myself before I wreck myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I check myself. So if I'm getting a little itchy, I'll take a deep breath in and I say, well, God can't be attacked. God is all there is. And I'll, go back into like the oneness thing.
Yeah.
Discipline is key. Can we tell people discipline is key? It's
Discipline
so
is key.
important.
And somebody told me this quote that stuck with me, and I think it goes the same here. Discipline is freedom.
Yes.
And I thought
Yeah.
that was
Oh, I
so
like
beautiful.
that.
Right?
I
Isn't
like
that
that. I
beautiful?
like that a lot. I like that a lot. So in this oneness, is you describe it perfectly, is the practice. You described it perfectly. It is practice. It is the practice of it is what creates oneness.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
not just like the theory of it. It's not just the thinking about it. It's not just about doing it with your close friends. It's about the practice of doing it and realizing it is everywhere. And it's
Hmm.
beautiful what you said about nature too, realizing the beauty of God in nature. That wonderful nature is constantly giving us compassion and love, you know, and we don't acknowledge nature as much as we should, you know. We can always go sit outside, and and in that sitting we can get connected to all of nature. Imagine this, all the trees are talking to one another, right?
Ooh.
And then the minute you sit down, you can hear all the trees from all over the world going through you, speaking through you. But you have to calm down. You have to surrender. You have to be like see-through. Allow that love and all that knowledge to just go and just be with you. It's beautiful.
I love nature. That's one of the reasons why I moved to Colorado. And now it's funny, after moving here and then I came back to visit you guys, I checked myself and I was like, nature's beautiful everywhere. A piece of sand is beautiful. And so that was my learning about oneness, because I was like, Florida is a swamp. And then I was like, I need to go to the forest and the mountains and see what's up with
Yeah.
Colorado. But then I came
Yeah.
back to Florida and I was like, it's a beautiful, lush, jungle, swampy playground of
Yeah.
Wakaiva Springs and like, all of my favorite
Mm,
places. So it was
yeah.
funny. I'm noticing oneness in different areas of my life, maybe like,
Mm,
and then I think that's when I really started to understand the oneness in nature. And
yeah.
speaking of acknowledging nature, I don't know if I've ever told you this. It might be kind of nerdy. I'll go outside sometimes and look up at the trees and I'll be like, "Hi, universe," and the trees will wave back. Like I literally feel like
It's
they
so
are
beautiful.
acknowledging me. And that might be
Yes.
weird, but you're the only person that I
No.
feel like would understand that.
Uh, no, that's beautiful, and they are.
They are,
They are
yes.
because you are, when you can acknowledge without ego, and you can acknowledge without any expectation, when you can just acknowledge with just unconditional love, it is immediately given to you. It isn't because it's a, it's a immediately given to you. Even every blade of grass,
Yes.
when the blade of grasses are swaying in the wind, they're singing, they're singing for you. you know and if we could just acknowledge that beauty, I don't know why we would ever be so sad or messed up, or think in littleness,
Mm,
when there's so much grandeur around us. There's so much magnitude in this oneness, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's huge.
amazing.
It's huge and
It's
it's deep and
huge.
it's wide and it's the all, right? It's
Yeah, it's
the
the all.
oneness. Yeah.
Yeah. So also know that love doesn't mean suffering, right?
Yes, yes.
Love is not suffering. So that's my whole thing on all my social media stuff is love is not suffering. And so much so that my email is love is not suffering Anita at Gmail. And the reason I did that was because I need it. Everything I say to somebody is I'm a constant reminder to myself. And constant reminder to myself. So every time, that's why I did it that way. When I look at that, I go, love isn't suffering. So if I am going through a state of suffering, it's what am I choosing at this point? Remember the split mind? Am
Hmm.
I choosing the truth? Am I choosing the higher vibration? Or am I choosing the ego? Am I choosing to say, no, this has more importance over it right now? So well, love really, that you can, how can you really suffer through love? Like unconditional love, how can you really suffer in the state of like love? It's the ego's version of saying love hurts, love hurts. Look at all the times that love has hurt. Well, love really didn't hurt. Love is a consistent source that is super powerful, super all-knowing, super peaceful, super joyful. The thing that hurts is is all the things that happen in the mind of the other person, in the mind of you, of the saying I'm not enough, the scarcity, all of that, that it has nothing to do with love. Absolute zero.
Hmm.
you know
Yeah. And so if we're going through like a fight with somebody or we're feeling like we're not enough, like what's a good way for us to tap back into the non-suffering version of love? Like say we're being insecure with our partner or something.
Right. Just maybe communicating that also,
Mm,
right? So you're feeling insecure with your partner. Well, I'm feeling a little bit insecure, and I realize I shouldn't. You know, that a vulnerable, genuine, authentic communication is really what love is about also.
Yes.
It's not saying that I'm all perfect, that I don't have my issues. You know, it's just being really honest,
Hmm.
really, really honest. And that's how you can stop suffering off the bat, is true honesty. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah. So like for instance, not too long ago, I had this like huge, huge thing on my face, and you know, I was a little self-conscious. So then, yeah, and my partner came, and I was just like, I said, I feel super insecure right now because I got this thing in my face. I just straight up acknowledged it. I'm not feeling so hot right now because I've got this thing on my face. And the response was like, "You're so beautiful," and then they kissed it.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine somebody kissing your zit and going, "I love you anyways.
It's like,
You're so beautiful." But you see what that does? That immediately drops the suffering, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's it. That's the best thing to do.
Just love. Oh, just
Just
everything you
love.
do with love. And that reminds me
Yeah.
of, like we always have a choice, and it's either love or fear. So it,
Right.
like, what are you choosing in every moment? And even with this pandemic that's going on, we have two ways
Right.
that we can look at this whole thing. You know, we can either
Right.
choose fear and let the media and everything do its job and like tear us down and make us super scared,
Yeah.
or we
Yeah.
can choose to be compassionate to one another and choose to like love whatever situation that we find ourselves in. If we're in the house the whole time, like, what goodness is this bringing to us right now? Like time with our families, time to slow down, time to go within instead of
Right.
always external, go, go, go. And like the earth is sort of taking a reset right now, like a big deep breath. Like the waters in Italy are becoming clear, the smog in LA and China is lifting, people can hear the birds in China again because there's not everybody in their cars going
Right.
to work. And that like just was so great for me to think about the earth taking a big
Mhm.
deep breath and starting to regenerate. But then
Right.
also the macrocosm is the same as the microcosm, right? So like what happens out
Mhm.
there is what happens in here. So as the earth is taking a big deep breath and starting to reset and rejuvenate, maybe this is a time where we should maybe also do the same thing.
Right. And that says we're literally being forced to look at ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, and whatever your scenario is, like, so if you're quarantined, for instance, by yourself, you are forced at this point to look at yourself. If you are quarantined with a family, if you're quarantined with, you know, 5 dogs and 6 kids, you know, you are being forced at this point to look at all of that. You know, we typically do not, we run from home all the time, most of us. You know what I mean? Where we say we can't wait to get home, we can't wait to get home when we're at work. We can't wait to get home. But now that we're actually stuck in this place that we can't wait to get to, now we can't wait to get out of it. Y- you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's healing that main root that most of us have an issue with is home, is family. Healing that root is huge. And that's going to take a lot of communication and a lot of compassion. Like for
Yes.
instance, my sister went off on me yesterday. Like, and I'm super chill. You don't understand. My sister went off on me yesterday, and I was just like, and I was feeling also like a little stir crazy, you know. And I was like, I looked at her, and I went outside the front door, and I was like, I gotta zen this out right now. I gotta zen this out. I'm about to go off. So I went outside. I went outside and I started like praying. I was like, okay, okay, relax. Why is she snapping at me? And then I realized it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with their stress about not working, their stress about, you know, the kids are constantly, there's constant cooking, it's like this constant this and not being able to breathe. So I was like, okay, I get it has nothing to do with me. Well, what can I do? How can I work this as? So a lot of us spiritual people, we always talk about having a spiritual community. Now this spiritual community starts in your house, right? So how to effectively apply those things, right? So I told her, I said, I get it. You're out of routine. I'm out of routine too. I get it. There's a lot of uncertainty about finances, about everything. Well, how about if I watch the kids, right? And I watch the kids from morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That way it gives you a break. It's about that. Like, well, okay. And not taking it personal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not taking the bickering personal and just saying, okay, what do you think I could do right now to help ease the scenario? Right? It helps reduce the suffering, right? So you can be more in a community where everybody may have a different opinion. Not everybody in the community has to be spiritual at all. Like in my household, I'm really the one who's like super uber spiritual, you know. Um, my brother-in-law is super into politics, super into like complete. Like, you want to talk about a spitting image of a difference physically and in all aspects. It is that, but then I got to look at that still from the perspective of God. Do you understand that? And be able to be okay being closed indoors with somebody who's talking about things that I particularly do not connect with, but still like saying, okay, how do I connect with you? And that is where oneness kicks in. You know what I mean? That takes a lot of discipline, you know, and not taking it personal is huge.
Yeah, that's huge because sometimes it can feel like blows, right? Like you're like, "Oh, that was
Oh yeah,
directed right at me." Like, "Thank you for that."
right.
Yep, and that was a
Yeah,
big lesson I learned, even with my husband. Like whenever we were going through, I think you knew all of that, just
yeah,
headbutting. But I'm now learning. And a while ago, I just let go of control and I surrendered and I just
yeah,
looked at him with love and I tried to be extremely empathetic and compassionate, and he was just going through his own shit. And now that he's
yeah.
almost, but so what he was doing and saying wasn't really personal, it was maybe a projection, or he didn't know how to deal with whatever he was going
Right,
through. And so the less that I took it personal, the less I tried to combat him, and the better
good.
we grew together. And so now that we're almost on the other side of this whole whatever it was, I'm starting to see that he was just going through his own thing. And had I called it quits and not let him
Right.
go through that and took it
Mm-hmm.
personal, then it would have been a totally different life and situation. But that was a big lesson for me. And like maybe my mom is snapping at me or my sister and all of these things, but it's probably not about me or something I did, especially if I know that I'm living, if I'm being a pretty easygoing, compassionate person and I didn't really do anything wrong. I think that's a huge thing, especially for people who are all locked inside right now with their family members, that
Yeah.
it might not be about you. Just meet it
Yeah.
with compassion, meet it with love, and hopefully it'll just kind of dissipate.
Right. It would be a compassionate listener. A compassionate listener. A compassionate listener can hear everything, but they're only connected to compassion. You see what I'm saying? So all those other words that are not in the vibration of compassion, they're allowing. It's like a tree. They allow it to funnel out and to just go through, and they don't hold on to it. Which is, so in the Buddhist traditions and the monks, they talk about, I am at home wherever I am. So they talk about you being the home of God. And so to be able to share that within this quarantine inside, and to have that manifest inside of the home through everybody is going through the worry of finances, the worry of this, the worry, and to still be and understand, what is my true foundation in this home? And what are we really building this home on? Is huge. And this time right now is huge. It's huge. So that's why I start in the beginning. Joy, best medicine. To break up the monotony, best medicine is joy. Like we have dance parties at night here,
Yeah.
um we, and again, becoming like if you are living with kids, to be able to become like a child again, to really play with the kids. Like before I got on here to speak with you, I was playing soccer with the kids,
Oh,
yeah, I was throwing the football and I was like, yeah, I was doing all this stuff, and I was like, well, this is pretty cool, I get to be a kid again, you know, so that's beautiful. And it's probably just looking at it from, but again, it just takes discipline, and it's okay. It's okay if you get frustrated. It's okay if you're like, oh, that's okay too. The process of not beating yourself up during that is super important. Just allow yourself, be honest. It'll reduce the suffering. So allow yourself to even go through the frustration and go, I'm frustrated right now. I just need a minute. Hold on. And then to realize there's really nothing to be frustrated about, but don't beat yourself up that you actually got frustrated. It's okay. It's okay. Just let it go, you know? Yeah.
So to close us out, is there anything
Yeah.
else that you want to mention before?
That I love you dearly, and I think you're amazing.
Ah, thank you.
Well, also I want to mention that I am going to be doing some classes, some web
Yes.
classes on effective communication with another medicine woman. So it's
Okay.
going to be the both of us talking. And it's more about the practice. So a lot of people, again, it's not about the theory of things. It's about the actual practice of how do I make things happen. You know what I mean? Um, and really, I see what you're doing, and I see your light, and it is such an honor and it's such a privilege to be with you today and every day, and realize we've always been together through eternity. And I love you so much, and I thank you so much for doing this.
Anita, thank you so much. Like, you are one of my biggest teachers and inspirations, and I think about you more than I tell you. You probably already know that, but I think
Oh no,
about
I
you.
can feel it.
Right? I know you. Your spidey senses are tingling over here. But it's also been a pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you. And how? So my last question is, in a time like this where we're quarantined, how can
Mm.
people start to tap into joy and compassion and love in a time where they're frustrated and scared and anxious and unknown? Like, what are some things that, like, play with kids, listen to music?
Yeah,
What are some
do
things?
something that's completely out of the ordinary.
Mm,
Like break up, you need to break up you're being forced to break up the routine, but now it's incorporating tantics, like funny things, like maybe giving yourself a bath, you know what I mean, maybe doing things those things that you've always wanted to do that you never had time for. If that means drawing, if that means, you don't have to figure it all out right now, you just have to be present in love as much as possible. So if you get really happy by banging on a drum, then bang on a drum, um, light a fire outside, light a candle. um, so but doing something different every day is going to be important for people right now. um, and incorporating different things. So it's like kids, they get bored really easy. You know what I mean? So we're big kids, you know? So we gotta do like dancing. I don't know. I know this, that you've got to move a little bit,
mhm.
that you've got to shake your body a little bit, because stress gets hold on to your joints, to your muscles, and you've got to shake your body. And it's okay if all you want to do is sleep too.
Yeah.
It's pretty much being okay with everything, so you don't stress out,
Ah,
and just saying,
yes.
all right, well, I'm feeling tired. Well, I slept 10 hours. It's okay. Just chill out. If you want to take a nap and watch 50 freaking movies right now because it's making you feel, maybe because you never didn't have the chance to do that before, it's okay.
Yeah.
you know so it's just honoring, just listening to yourself. Not Don't lie to yourself and say, well, I'm spiritual, I need to go meditate now for 20 minutes. If you don't feel like meditating right now for 20 minutes, but you feel like bouncing a ball, well, bounce the ball.
So it's like kind of like being okay, just
Yeah,
being and not putting up
just being.
resistance. Yeah, let go of
Right,
control, surrender,
right.
be okay in whatever this is and whatever is going on in your household, and just be.
Yeah. And try not to isolate yourself so much, as far as like if you're living with other people, try not to isolate yourself. Be part of this together,
Mm.
because this is our lesson. This is our lesson. This is about how we heal this world. And
Yes.
it starts in your house. So don't go and isolate yourself. Be present with your family. Be present with your friends. Be present. Be there. Be there. And maybe this is healing our communication also, to be really honest, because once we feel like cage birds, right? And when peck at everything, we're starting to be really brutally honest about certain things. So it's about being honest again, not taking it personal. Just breathe. It's okay. Just allow people to let it go. There's, let it all out.
Mm.
You know. Yeah.
Oh,
I love
that's
you so
wonderful.
much. I
I
love
love
you.
you
Thank you.
too. And where can people find
Thank
you?
you.
Tell me about in your courses. When are these coming out? I'm
Okay.
interested.
So everything I'm going to be doing on my Facebook. I'm going to be when I have them all coming out, I'm going to be doing on Facebook. So my Facebook is Love Is Not Suffering. Right?
Perfect.
And it's very easy. My Instagram's the same way. Love Is Not Suffering is my Instagram, and my name on my personal account is Anita Scott, because we can get personal too.
Yeah.
And my email's the same thing. Love Is Not Suffering, Anita@gmail.com, because obviously, guess what? I'm trying to spread that love isn't suffering.
Oh, yes. I love
Yes.
it. And I'm going to be on the lookout for your courses because I am
Yes.
definitely interested in learning more from you and whatever you have coming down the pipe, because I know it's just great and lovely. So, Anita, thank you. Thank you from the
Thank
bottom of my
you.
heart and the depths of my soul for coming on my podcast with me and joining the light side.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good day. Peace.
Peace.